Good day, world. Hello, one. Hello, all. Welcome. Welcome today. Together here, we are exploring the renaissance of tokenized economies in the digital age here on our darling station of X Spaces, BSV blockchain. Thank you. Thank you very much. Yes, and it is our joy to be here today with a leading innovator, Owen Vaughan. Owen, he has released a white paper on universal blockchain assets. But what is a blockchain asset and what is a token? This is the discussion that we will carry along and explore today together. Now, it's not just us here on the BSV Explain Like I'm Five, episode 16, that are engaged in this exploration and work on tokenized economies. But even mainstream leaders like the CEO of BlackRock, Larry Fink, has said before that he sees Bitcoin ETFs as one step in the evolution of financial markets. Step two is going to be the tokenization of every financial asset. But this topic doesn't stop there. What I love so much is that it reminds me of the Renaissance, in that it's due to human ingenuity, the imagination of every individual getting involved and creating tokens in this digital world. So, as a child, when I was 5, people would say, "Oh, this is the information age." And now we are on the precipice of realizing this digital market economy globally and in many new dimensions. So it is our joy to introduce to you today Dr. Owen Vaughan. He is the Chief Science Officer with nChain Licensing. Dr. Owen Vaughan leads the overall strategy of the Research and Development Department of nChain. He is skilled at bridging the gap between academia and industry by turning abstract ideas into concrete building blocks. His own research interests lie in privacy-preserving computation, blockchain network topology, wallet design, and identity management. He is a frequent keynote speaker and organizing committee member at international conferences in blockchain and network security. He regularly publishes articles in IEEE and Springer, as well as in thought leadership blogs. Owen holds an M.Math from the University of York and PhD in string theory from the University of Liverpool. He also worked as a postdoc in the Analysis and Differential Geometry group at the University of Hamburg. So, Owen Vaughan, welcome to the conversation. And I have just sent you the invitation to be a speaker. Welcome, welcome, Owen. Yes, here he comes, on up to the speaker box. Hi! Thank you, Owen. How are you today?
I'm very good. I hope you can hear me okay. This is the first time I've used Spaces, so I'm very excited about that. Thank you for the lovely introduction, and I'm really appreciative of everyone who's giving up their time to listen to me now, and hopefully we're going to learn something together.
Absolutely, yes. And we thank you for your time as well. So why don't you just give us a picture of some things that could be assets that are tokenized assets? What does this mean to you?
Yeah, so if we think of a token, it's there's many different types of tokens. So there are tokens that we can think of as money, the cash you have in your wallet. In the UK, these are actually promises. The £10 note I have says I promise to pay the bearer the £10 worth of physical asset, which is gold, when they present it. There are utility tokens. So these are things like a cinema ticket that might give you the right to access a service or something like that. Then you also have tokens linked to your identity. So like a ID, for example, or an access token to go into a restricted area or an online service or something like that. And they can also be related to digital rights as well. So I might have a token that represents my ownership of a digital asset or a piece of content that I've created, things like that. So there's lots of different types of tokens, and they can be classified in different ways. Oh, and a security token, that's a very important one, because this means typically a token representing an investment where I have an expectation of profit. So yeah, these are all tokens that existed long before the blockchain came along. And we're interested in how the blockchain can be used to make this management of tokens more efficient.
That's beautiful. And also, I believe that because it is on the immutable blockchain, therefore it has that lasting, it
Mm-hmm.
lasts through time. You can always go back and refer to it there on the blockchain. So that's something new, because now we have this triple entry accounting resource that is the blockchain. So the files or the assets, they can't be hidden or lost. Is that correct, you say?
Mm. Yeah, so where the blockchain is very useful is firstly in the immutable property that you just mentioned, where we can record what happened with this token, but also to leverage the payment infrastructure that blockchains provide for us. So if we take Bitcoin as the example, it's a fantastic payment mechanism, not just for the transfer of Bitcoin, but I mean things like the wallets that we have. There's lots of different types of wallets. They're very user friendly now, easy for me to sign up, and easy for me to send and receive payments of Bitcoin, but also tokens that could be on top of Bitcoin, and all the types of tokens I just mentioned. I think it's interesting to think of the blockchain native tokens. So each blockchain itself necessarily has to come with its own token, and we call this the native token. So for Bitcoin, the Bitcoin blockchain native token is called a Bitcoin, or a Satoshi if you fractionalize it. For Ethereum, the native token is Ether, and so on. And it's very important that these blockchains come with an intrinsic token, because blockchains don't know anything about the outside world. So they have to come with a token that can be used to incentivize the network to maintain itself. So Bitcoin does this with proof of work. So if a miner produces a new block, then they get rewarded by this native token. But herein also lies the challenge, because blockchains don't know anything about the outside world. So how do we deal with an asset that might represent something physical? And that's where tokenization comes in. And it's a whole industry now. And I'm particularly interested in the mechanics of how this can work in an efficient way, in a scalable way, and in the context of this latest work, in an interoperable way. But maybe we can get onto that. But yeah, that's maybe a new type of token that's emerged in the blockchain world. I always have to say, whenever I hear the word token, I always think back to the first token I was ever exposed to. And this was in the amusement arcades when I was very young. You would go when you went on a family holiday to the seaside, you'd go to the amusement arcades, which would be, a confined physical space. You would enter and you would pay your money in pounds, and you would receive a number of tokens. Let's say I got 10 tokens, and these tokens could each be spent at one of the different arcades. And this is a very good example of a utility token in that context. And
Oh, yes.
did you ever do that? Right. And they called them
I
tokens as
did.
well.
Yes.
So it's a really kind of visceral understanding of what a token is. And it's also clear why that works, because I didn't want to have to pay in loose change every time I used the machine. And similarly, the people who own the amusement park don't want to have to collect all of that money individually. They would just prefer if at the beginning we paid in a lump sum, we get the tokens and we spent them. And there was also something exciting about that. I really enjoyed having these tokens because I knew that, my mum wouldn't go home early until I'd got a chance to use all of these 10 tokens. So I always think
Yes.
about that when I think of a token. I don't know why.
Yes, and that's very relatable here in
Mhm.
Marietta, Georgia. Growing
Mhm.
up, we would sometimes go to a place called Chuck E. Cheese's, and there you would put your money or your coins or your dollar bills into the machine, and you would receive tokens to play the games there in the little playground. And then you go and you play skee ball and you win some tickets, and you go up to the prize booth and you can choose your prize. So that is very relatable. And I know another token that I remember from childhood was for a local record and CD tape shop. It was called Turtles, and they had a golden coin. It was appearing golden, that is. And we would get that as a gift certificate for our friends and give it to them as a gift. So then they could go into Turtles record store and pick out their favorite tape at that time.
Yeah, well, a token is traditionally used as a gift. In England, we often talk about a token of our love or our appreciation, right? And that's a gift that you were giving. I think it's one thing that we need to remember about tokens is they always come with a contract, and sometimes this is a very informal contract, but in one that's implicit. So when I went to the amusement arcades, there was an implied contract that when I bought these tokens, they're going to work on the machines that in the way that I expected them to. And it's very important to always have this in mind as well, that contracts form the legal framework for tokens to be effective, because without that, they don't have any meaning on their own. They're a representation of another type of asset, whether it's digital or physical, and the contract tells you the boundaries in which that representation can be maybe transferred, bought, consumed, and things like that.
Yes, very good. And this is the contract in that, in a very implied sense, you know what you are using this token for. But then there could be something like smart contracts, which are very common. We hear on Ethereum, they have a lot of smart contracts. And then also on BSV blockchain, the Bitcoin blockchain, we have S script and the ability to create smart contracts as well. And I believe that even smart contracts are a part of the innovation that you have proposed with universal blockchain assets in leading to the interoperability across blockchains through the use of a smart contract being deployed on a blockchain that is other than the one you may be using. So, this concept of contracts is very in depth. So, what do you say to that, Owen?
I would say I interpret it slightly differently. I would say what we've proposed is a token protocol, and there's an implicit contract within that says if you follow the rules of this protocol as we outline, then you can use this to determine the rightful owner of the token. It's something like that. So if you follow these rules, then you own the token. But if you don't follow these rules, then you don't own the token. But integrating this with, so maybe we can talk about smart contracts on Ethereum. I think smart contracts it's when we talk about smart contracts on Ethereum, I think we really mean self-executing pieces of computer code. I don't really think of them as contracts. I think it's something like I can create a computer program that the Ethereum network will automatically run on my behalf. And that's how a lot of people, I've noticed in academia, where people have more of a kind of a limited understanding of blockchain. They view a blockchain as a kind of black box that is almost like a global computer that they can give it any program they want, and it will automatically execute this program whenever you need it. It's always on, it's always persistent, and it's always available. But I don't think this really is the heart of what a blockchain is. It was interesting in this piece of work that we had to create something universal. We had to strip down let's put it this way: we had to really dig deep and think, what are the properties that every blockchain have in common? And it isn't these types of self-executing programs. The two things that they all have in common is a immutable database. So that's the blockchain itself. This is a publicly viewable database that when I've written something to it, that will never change in the future. And the second thing they have is some form of double spend protection. This means if I create a transaction assigning this digital asset to you, then I can't assign that to anyone else. And that's extremely useful in the digital world to create a sense of uniqueness. It's almost the only way you can create a sense of uniqueness. You can't copy a Bitcoin. It doesn't work like that. You have this double spend protection. You have the concept of me owning a unique Bitcoin. Even if everyone can see that data, they're still not able to take that away from me. This is why blockchain is so important in Web3, in building a decentralized online ecosystem. Blockchain really gives us this notion of uniqueness, and that's something they all have in common.
Yes, and nowadays many companies and individuals have already become involved building on various blockchains, and even signing contracts for digital assets. It could be for the deed of a house, or it could be for bonds or stocks. It could also be for a piece of artwork, having your digital asset registered on the blockchain. But what happens when you need to transfer across blockchains? Let's say that Sally is on Ethereum, but then Sharon is on Bitcoin. So, how can they make the trade? And this is the question of how are these interoperable? And this is something you've been exploring with universal blockchain assets. And I wonder, why do you think there is a need for such a service?
Yeah, well, let me start by explaining how we got to this point, because Bitcoin was developed in 2008. And before Bitcoin, there was really nothing that could do what a blockchain could do. But since then, we have pretty much all we need in a blockchain in Bitcoin. And in the first few years, it was just being explored by enthusiasts and hobbyists. But after a while, people realized they could, because everything is open source, they realized they could start playing around with it a little bit. So 3 or 4 years later, you see the emergence of other blockchains, and we call them altcoins sometimes. In the beginning, they just played around with the consensus mechanism. So things like Ripple and Litecoin, they were basically the same as Bitcoin under the hood, but they had different ways they managed their network. Then a few years after that, you see quite different blockchains that have wildly different technical capabilities. So we talked about Ethereum, but you also have things like Monero that focused on privacy, or you have Hyperledger that focused on strong permissioning. And now in 2024, there's 1,000 different blockchains, and it's very hard for the average person to make sense of that. And I personally think that we only need one blockchain, but we have to face the reality at the moment that we have lots of different blockchain platforms and lots of different users on each platform. And so yeah, I've been thinking hard about how we can live with that and make the most out of it. And I suppose coming to your next question, which is something like, well, what's the problem with that? Well, let me start that with a little story. So I recently got married in Argentina a few months ago, and that involved,
Congratulations.
thank you so much. Thank you. No, I was very, very fantastic wedding and a fantastic wife. And it's a wonderful country. It has very great culture, great food, great natural resources. But they have a really big problem with their economy. So there's not a trust in the Argentinian peso through mismanagement over many decades. And as a result, they have hyperinflation. So we're talking about 200%, 300% in a year. And as a result, there's currency controls when you get there. So you can't just change your dollars for pesos. There are restrictions on that. And it's very difficult it was difficult for me and my wife, who also works in the UK, to send money to Argentina. You just can't do a bank transfer to Argentina. And you can't use third-party providers like TransferWise either. They don't operate there. So we were sending, it turns out that in Argentina, a lot of people use cryptocurrencies for this reason, because it's a more frictionless way of payments. So they're quite blockchain savvy. And so we started sending money in Tether, USDT, because a lot of our vendors would accept that. But one day, one of our vendors phoned me up and said, well, we didn't receive your payment. And I said, well, I'm pretty sure I sent it. So I checked. And sure enough, he hadn't received my payment. And I'd accidentally sent him the wrong type of USD stablecoin. Instead of Tether, I'd sent him something called USD BC. And that is a asset that was designed to bridge two blockchains together. But its ticker symbol was so close to USDC that I thought it was the same thing. I'm sorry, it wasn't Tether. It was USDC that I was sending. I recall now. So I just selected the wrong type of token, even though it was also a stable coin backed by USD, and I sent it to a wrong address. And this got me really frustrated. I thought, why do we need these two different tokens on different blockchains that have the same underlying asset? It was a terrible experience for me. Lucky I was able to get it back. But it really made me think that we're duplicating effort, we're increasing risk and uncertainty, we're reducing liquidity, and can we do better? So that was a very personal experience. You also mentioned two use cases. One was, I think, the ownership of art, and also land registry. I like to focus on these because these are two types of token that might exist not just for years, but for decades or for hundreds of years. You know, the way we typically track the ownership of, sorry, no, I'll put it another way. The way we typically know whether a piece of art is authentic rather than fake is not by looking at the particular brushstrokes of the painting. It's by checking all of the receipts of the owners all the way back until that art was first produced. That's the most sure way of doing it. So a concrete trail of ownership in art is extremely valuable, just as it is in property. And these assets exist for such a long time that the blockchain I'm using might die before those assets do. So if I'm using maybe a more newer experimental blockchain to issue an asset corresponding to the ownership of my house, what if that blockchain isn't here in 10 years' time? Where's the record of my ownership gone? So that's why it's very important that we have a blockchain token that can be used on any blockchain. So if my blockchain that I'm using doesn't exist, I can transfer my token representing my house ownership to a new blockchain, or one that I have more confidence in. So I think these are very, very good use cases for, or good motivation for developing a blockchain token that is agnostic to the underlying blockchain.
Thank you. That is a beautiful example. I see it crystal clearly. And that is what we're dealing with. We have thousands of altcoins or alt chains, we could say, emerging after the instance of Bitcoin being introduced. So now many people are already engaged on these platforms and using this all around the world in various economies. But like you say, what happens if the blockchain dies that you happen to be on? And this could happen. It sounds quite tragic, but it could happen indeed through the inability to scale. That is one very important issue. And so, if that happens and your assets on your chain that of your choice that you have invested in are stuck there, then oh no, you need to move them. Because what if you pass the deed of your house on to your children in the future? Well, you want to secure that through generations, even. And I love that crystal clear example. You just painted the picture for us. And I think that even certain entities such as Christie's or Sotheby's, when they have auctions, this is very useful for them to really register and show integrity to the provenance of a certain object or piece of art or something that they're trading at auction as well. So it lends legitimacy to various markets. And it's just so exciting. So, one thing I would love to do is to read the abstract of your white paper. Do you mind?
Oh, please, yes, my pleasure.
Yes,
We can
I
walk through
know.
it.
Well, this is very beautiful. Here we have Dr. Owen Vaughan, Universal Blockchain Assets. And this is with nChain Limited, 30 Marketplace, London. In the abstract, we present a novel protocol for issuing and transferring tokens across blockchains without the need of a trusted third party or cross chain bridge. In our scheme, the blockchain is used for double spend protection only, while the authorization of token transfers is performed off chain. Due to the universality of our approach, it works in almost all blockchain settings. It can be implemented immediately on UTXO blockchains, such as Bitcoin, without modification, and on account based blockchains, such as Ethereum, by introducing a smart contract that mimics the properties of a UTXO. And a UTXO, I might add here, is an unspent transaction output. That is a term often used in Bitcoin blockchain. So now I carry on reading. We provide a proof of concept implementation of an NFT or non fungible token that is issued on Bitcoin, transferred to Ethereum, and then transferred back to Bitcoin. Our new approach means that users no longer need to be locked into one blockchain when issuing and transferring tokens. So, bravo. That is just simply the abstract to your white paper. And this is spot on with what's needed. As we say today, we need this interoperability. Uh, it just extends the market and it lets us expand our investments and our utility, as well as the longevity of our economic activities into the future. And I see that here we are entering into this universal blockchain asset age. And there have been others that have attempted this solution. But what makes what you're doing unique, Owen?
So a lot of people are trying to solve the same problem. So it's a big business seeing if you can create a platform that abstracts the complexities of blockchain to your clients. And the traditional method of doing this is with something called a bridge. And we can imagine the analogy is fair. So I have two islands, or we can have many islands which represent these different blockchains. And in order to get from one island to another, I have to build a bridge. And the bridge allows you to move your asset onto the bridge and then off the bridge at the other island. But whilst bridges have great usability, they also have a lot of problems as well. So, firstly, bridges themselves are new trusted platforms. So, it's like, in my mind, trying to solve the problem of having two blockchains by introducing a third blockchain. This doesn't make any sense to me. I have to trust that this bridge works as they say it will work. And moreover, these bridges are much more complex than a normal blockchain. So I mentioned in the beginning, a normal blockchain doesn't know anything about the outside world. It's just a kind of self-contained system. Whereas these bridges are like a blockchain in addition with let's say, trusted connections to other blockchains. And you have to be very sure these connections work properly. Otherwise, you can get some very nasty things happening. And indeed, the biggest hacks of money in crypto history have occurred on bridges. There's a famous wormhole hack that resulted in $320 million worth of Ethereum being hacked. And it's not even clear that you can call this theft, because the attacker was simply using the rules of the smart contract on the bridge. And it was a poorly coded smart contract that they were able to exploit and take that money. So bridges represent a huge amount of risk. They have fees. Often these are quite hidden. A bridge might introduce their own token or something like that, and it might not be clear that there's a fee involved with that, or they might be subsidized for the time being, but once they actually become popular, there'll certainly be a fee. So I don't like bridges. I'm here to burn bridges. And the bridges are also quite restrictive because you only have a bridge between two islands. If I want to go from the second island to another one, I have to build another bridge and I have to integrate that with my tech stack. So they're also not very scalable. What we're trying to do with the universal blockchain asset, it's more like giving us a boat so we can just sail to any island we want. We're in complete control. So that's how our approach is different from these bridges. We don't introduce any new trust to the system. We don't introduce a trusted third party. We don't introduce a new platform that we have to trust. Everything is done just peer-to-peer between the owners of the assets. And this, to me, is a very Web3 way of thinking. And I often think of this as a token that is fit for Web3. I don't think any have been proposed so far. I think this is the first time we can consider that.
Bravo, well done. And I love that picture as well, that you're burning the bridges and you're building a boat. And we can sail around and trade in the economy here, there, and everywhere. And another point of your work that I feel is very beneficial, not only is the actual functionality of what you're proposing, keeping things simple and to the point and efficient, but it's also helping people to protect their wealth, protect the time, protect the investment that they've made in the early days, experimenting on these various blockchains in this emerging world of the digital product assets. You are providing that boat to let them hop into in the future as needed and to sail on to the new markets. So I think that one thing is that we are moving into this new world of exchange, and it's still in its early days, but we do foresee, and particularly a thought leader named Ziming Gao foresees that in the end there will be only one blockchain. To keep it simple, just use the one that works, that scales, and that is interoperable for the entire world to use. And this is what many folks in the BSV blockchain ecosystem have conceptualized, that eventually there will be only one blockchain. But at the moment, there are thousands for people to choose from. There are public and there are private. But what do you foresee, Owen? Do you foresee that in the end there will be only one? And how do private blockchains fit into this equation?
Yeah, it reminds me of that film Highlander that had that as a kind of strap line. But in the end, there'll be only one. Um, well, let me just come back to a comment you made, which I really liked, was we're keeping things very simple. And that's why this protocol is very simple. Everyone on this call will be able to understand it. I think there's only 2 diagrams in the paper. I'd love you all to download it and have a read. So please check out my Twitter profile and you'll find a link to it, or you can just Google Universal Blockchain Assets, Owen Vaughan, and you'll find it online. But it's very simple, and that's why I know it works. You know, these bridges, they mask a huge amount of complexity with their fancy websites, but we have no idea how to begin auditing those types of platforms, and no one can say whether they work or not even the people who have created them. But the UBA, Universal Blockchain Asset, is a very, very simple protocol. And it's almost remarkable it hasn't been developed earlier. But I can kind of tell you a little bit of the story about why that is. So well, firstly, you know, my experience as a researcher. So I was in academia for a long time in theoretical physics in the math department, and then doing research in industrial settings in blockchain. So, you know, the last 16 years of my life have been dedicated to scientific research. I can tell you that the hardest ideas to come up with are the simplest ones, the ones that when they're revealed, you think, well, gosh, did anyone do this before? And you're surprised when you realize they haven't. And they're the ones that tend to stick. They're the ones that everyone can understand and require, you know, herald a new leap forward. And this didn't come from nowhere, this protocol. So nChain, I'd say in the last 4 years, we've been thinking very, very deeply about how we can write data to the blockchain that is linked to one another. So they might be different business events, for example, in a way that is scalable and private. So we've been thinking for a long time about this problem. And although my name is on as an author of the paper, it builds upon the work of dozens of people at nChain over the last few years, and really matured our understanding of what the blockchain is, which is essentially a kind of immutable ledger plus a UTXO set. So I think it could only really have come from, you know, the team at nChain, whether that was me or someone else, because we've been focused on this problem for so long. And then coming on to Ziming Gao's comments. So he wrote a fantastic article explaining in more detail than I could how the universal blockchain asset fits into the wider token context. And he made this interesting comment that this will help speed up the transition to just having one blockchain. So what did he mean by that? Because it's an unusual comment, given that we're talking about a interoperable token protocol. So now we can use any blockchain we want. What he meant was this: if I have a token that can live on any blockchain, why would it live on one blockchain and not the other? So let's say I'm a user of Ethereum and I receive this token, but I noticed that when people on BSV are using this token, they pay a lot less transaction fees. So why am I using the same asset on Ethereum when it's costing me $10, $15 every transaction when I could be using BSV? So why don't I just buy some BSV and use it there? I'm going to save some money and I'm going to get exactly the same use out of my token. So what Zhemin Gao meant was if we can remove the friction in using different blockchains, then people will converge on the blockchain with the best fundamentals. So the best transaction throughput, the highest data storage capabilities, the most effective programming capabilities. And so it's really exposing the fundamentals. And my favorite blockchain is Bitcoin SV, but I'm sitting here, a little bit hot under the collar, hoping that other people will come to the same conclusion, that when they have the option to use any blockchain, they'll use this one because of the reasons I've just said. So I would say it's what this is doing is removing the friction in using different blockchains and asking the question, well, then why would we be using these expensive, slow chains? We don't need to be locked into them anymore.
Yes, it's really giving a lifeboat to everyone there that they can come along and do business where it's most efficient and has the highest capacity to operate. You can do the most with it as well as for the lowest cost. So that is fantastic. You are really, and you and your team and all of the colleagues there that you're working with are doing a wonderful service to the world. So I'm grateful to you for that.
Well,
And it must be
I love your lifeboat analogy, Rory, because we can think of this as in our islands of different blockchains, and the sea is rising. What do we want to do? We want to give people a lifeboat so that they can get to the highest island. The
right.
opportunity with the most capabilities to save ourselves.
It's it's wonderful what you're doing and your team for the world. And this is something that people are somewhat paying attention to, but it's still an emerging market, an emerging industry. So we're here today to have this conversation so that we can not only further explore and learn ourselves here in this group, but also share with the world this knowledge, share with everyone so that people can learn and conceptualize what is emerging in the global economy. And it's one thing to hear about something that you could buy and then hopefully the price would go up. But here, what we're focused on is really the ways that these digital tools can be used in the best way to extend and build economies from now and into the future. So, Owen, what are some of the areas that you're most excited about that you could just paint a picture again of how this could be used, universal blockchain assets for uh, business in the real world?
Yes. Well, I mean, just developing your point, this is a very new, cutting edge piece of work. And you all here on this call have got a head start over everyone else in the industry. This will become the standard in blockchain. So the fact that we're here first, ahead of the game, means we can really get a head start and a competitive edge. So I invite you to all take part in that, and let's see what we can build on this together. I'd love to hear use cases for the universal blockchain asset from the people on this call. Please get in contact with me and we'll go through and have a chat together, and I can take you through a more detailed demo, and we can see what it is you would like to use it for. Because we have an opportunity to shape the development of this based on what is the most relevant thing to the largest number of people. Because it's interoperable, there's a huge market. You issue one of these tokens, anyone on any blockchain can use it. Think of the possibilities in that. The immediate goal for me, well, look, also I'll say, you know, we and I am trying to be as open as possible from the earliest possible point. So at the London Blockchain Conference a few weeks ago, where this was first presented, that was really us at a very early stage telling everyone that we think this is a great idea and we want everyone to use it and work on it. We haven't developed a whole product on this yet. We haven't got that far. You know, we were so excited. We wanted to get it out there, and you know, we took maybe a bit of a risk in doing that. But we think the risk was worth it, and we're really glad that you guys feel the same way. So we're still early in the development of this technology. We've already implemented it on BSV and Ethereum and BTC, but just in our own testing wallet. We haven't integrated it with any existing wallet infrastructure. But that's the next step for us. We want to pick the most popular blockchain wallets and integrate this protocol with them. Let me give you an example. In Ethereum, one of the most popular wallets is a web browser-based wallet called MetaMask. Some of you might be aware of that already. And what we're working on at the moment is to integrate this protocol with MetaMask. So in a MetaMask wallet, you'll be able to view the balances of your UBA tokens and you'll be able to buy and sell them. But we also want to implement it on a BSV wallet. We haven't quite decided which one yet, but we'll pick one, integrate the protocol on BSV wallet so that you can send it from your Ethereum MetaMask wallet to your BSV, let's say, Handcash wallet, something like that, or vice versa. And we think then people will really get a really concrete, tangible understanding of what this can do. And we at nChain, we try and, wherever possible, we try and work with existing standards and we try and change as little as possible. So from MetaMask perspective, this might be interpreted as an ERC 721 token, which is their NFT standard. Whereas on the BSV side, the token is interpreted as a one sat ordinal, something like that. So we can leverage all of that infrastructure that's already been developed to deploy this new type of token. So I'm hoping very quickly we'll have a few different wallets integrated with this protocol, so people can start using it as they would use a token for any other purpose on these wallets.
Fantastic. It's super exciting. And Krez here with BSV Blockchain has noted that she has shared on the reply thread to this X Spaces the link to your white paper, Owen. So, everyone listening, if you just look down in the comments below this X space, you can click on the link to go read Owen's white paper on universal blockchain assets and have a think on it, brainstorm a bit, and then collaborate. You can talk with others here and reach out. I believe Owen has said to him, and share your ideas, share your concepts for how you could apply this. One application that I feel is very reminiscent of what you're doing is called Champions of Otherworldly Magic. It's a trading card game that is available for purchase with BSV. You can use your Handcash wallet to purchase a pack of cards. And you can also buy this on Doge and on BTC. Folks have bought these trading cards there as well. So perhaps that would be one potential good use case, is that maybe you could connect with champions of otherworldly magic and say, hey, have you ever tried this UBA before? Let's collaborate. That's just
Well,
an initial brainstorm I have.
I love it. So the use case there is in gaming, right? And that in you can see why the blockchain is useful here, because if I'm playing a online multiplayer computer game, it wouldn't it be great if there were unique objects that only certain people could possess? Maybe it's a sword that I discovered in a certain area, or maybe it's my character who I'd spent a long time developing their skills. And so you want uh, a method for creating that sense of uniqueness, and that's where the blockchain comes in. And similarly, these uh, the user base of these games is going to be very wide. They're going to use different types of blockchains for sure, and they're going to be able to want to transfer these assets to their friends on different blockchains. They might also want to transfer their asset to a particular blockchain they can use for investment or storage or something like that. So I think gaming is a great use case for this as well. So no, good idea. I'll follow that up. Thank you, Rory.
Oh, thank you, Owen. Yes. And that's something that we've been talking about for years here, making in game items interoperable to be able to build up your character or, uh, create your sword, your different items, even fashion, probably, and skins in the different game worlds, to be able to trade them across and take them into new game worlds. This is something we've also discussed with Robert Rice from Transmira and in the metaverse. So it seems like what you're doing with UBA is this fantastic solution that can be used to just extend the market ever further. And I love how you open it up to the people. You say, hey, what's your idea? Let's make it happen. And this is very inspiring. So kudos to you, Owen, and your team.
Thank you, Rory. Well, I love the metaverse as well, because it, what I would like in the metaverse is to be able to take something out of it that I can use somewhere else. So let me give you an example. I've recently been learning Spanish, and I'm doing that on group team meetings, but that's essentially a virtual reality environment. I could just as well be doing that on the metaverse. It's a virtual event. I've never met any of these people that I'm attending, and I'm learning a lot. And moreover, I get a qualification at the end of it. And I want to take that qualification into the real world or into maybe another online platform. So I think being able to extract tangible assets from the digital world is extremely exciting to me, and I think that could be another very good use case for universal blockchain asset. So we're kind of repeating ourselves a little bit, which is great. We're understanding it a bit more deeply. What this could be useful for is a token that I receive in the digital world that I want to use for on another platform. And I, the only way to do that is with a blockchain, but I don't care which one. It doesn't matter to me which blockchain we use. So that's maybe a common thread in the types of use cases we can see.
Yes, certainly. And you mentioned a common thread. So I did recall from your bio that you have a PhD in string theory. And this is most fascinating. It is, opening up our perspective to new dimensions that have been unforeseen previously. And as I understand, it's that at the essence of everything, every atom or molecule or quark, there is this vibrating string, is the concept of string theory. And that this is at the essence of things. So, how has your studies in string theory been relevant to the real world work that you're doing with blockchain?
Yeah, well, it links together in two ways. I mean, one is they are both string theory and researching blockchain, in particular Bitcoin SV. They're both these great advances in science and technology that require a little bit of curiosity, and also that receive a little bit of animosity by sometimes the establishment. There's a phrase in string theory that's quite famous because it was first developed in the late 70s, early 80s, and someone said it was a 21st century physics that by accident fell into the 20th century. And I really like that phrase because it captures the fact that it was ahead of its time. It was this strange new thing that we had to understand. It wasn't that anyone came along with complete clarity and said what it is. It's more like we're grasping at this idea that's a little bit ahead of us. And I think I feel the same when I research Bitcoin. I feel like there's a lot of people, in more established um, industries that will say, "Well, why are you doing that? This isn't real life. This isn't useful." And I would say, "Well, look, it's extremely interesting and worthwhile for some people to be working on it. Maybe right now it's not ready for the mainstream, but that doesn't mean the number of people working on it should be zero, just like string theory, which we also think is probably not the correct theory of everything, but it's still extremely fruitful area of study. And so I think you have to have that self-belief, that confidence, and a little bit of faith in these two breakthroughs in order to study them. But there is one way that it's directly relevant, which I didn't know at the time, but string theory is a very geometrical framework. You have multiple dimensions, lots of them are curled up. You end up having to be an expert in geometry, which is what I studied. And when I moved to studying blockchain, I realized a lot of the cryptography is based on something called elliptic curves. Elliptic curves are fascinating objects, geometric objects that live in a very unusual space called projective space. And I'd studied them in the context of string theory, and I never thought they would be algebraic geometry would be relevant for the real world. And it was a complete surprise to me that a lot of modern cryptography is based on elliptic curves, which I knew very well. So if you ever create a Bitcoin signature, it's using elliptic curve arithmetic. I almost got a bit annoyed. I thought, well, why on earth did they not teach me this when I was at university? It seemed like a bit closed-minded not to try and make these connections with some very relevant real-world technology. So it turned out that I had some interesting background knowledge that forms the basis of blockchain technology.
And were you led by your intuition to these two studies? What led you along this path?
I would say less intuition and more leap of faith, and maybe a curiosity and a willingness to be wrong, but to see what it was all about. I think in both cases it was a bit serendipitous. I fell into these areas, but I was presented with opportunities that was serendipitous. But I took those opportunities, because I was curious and wanted to learn more. And that's still how I approach this area. Every week I learn something new. It's such a fantastic area to be a researcher in blockchain technology. We're still just getting started.
Mm-hmm. Oh, it's so meaningful. And it is also a part of human evolution to be curious, to go
Mm.
forth and to explore and to develop.
It's one of our key values at nChain R&D is curiosity. without that, we close our minds off.
Mm-hmm. Oh, I love it. Well, we've come to the top of the hour, Owen, and we're just getting started. So I'm grateful to you today for having this conversation with me and with our audience on this topic of the tokenomics, tokenization of real world assets, and the new emerging economies that all the people, we can all participate and create together with BSV blockchain and with the lifeboat that is this universal blockchain asset. So thank you, Dr. Owen Vaughan.
Thank you, Rory, and thank you everyone for listening, for staying with us for the hour. And I just want to leave with a final thought to say that you can understand this. You can understand the paper and what's going on. And by being here, you're already ahead of everyone else. So take that, and I want to be inspired by the use cases you come up with. And don't hesitate to contact me.
Brilliant. Yes, onwards and upwards. Here we go. Well, thank you so much. And we will do that. Everyone here listening, I also would love to make you aware of several wonderful resources that are available through the work of the BSV Blockchain Association as well as nChain. So the first would be please download the ebook about the next era in minor economics, embracing cooperation, or pardon me, embracing co-opetition and infrastructure. We will provide the link down below in the comments to this X Spaces. Also, please download a copy of the BSV blockchain as an enterprise cybersecurity framework. The ebook here is BSVB Enterprise Cybersecurity Framework, and you can download that with the link enclosed in the comments to this space. Furthermore, check out the simplified explanation of network access rules, hashtag NAR. That's here on this link, bsvblockchain.org/news/ELI5 BSV network access rules. That link will also be provided below in the comments. And please do check out the simplified explanation of the BSV blockchain Mandala network. And that is also enclosed in the link below. So we have a lot to learn. And anytime that you have any ideas to suggest to Owen, or any questions, or want to engage in conversations here with the like minded innovators and entrepreneurs in the BSV blockchain ecosystem, join the Discord. The BSV community is on Discord, and you can go there to join the BSV Discord server. So, thank you all for being here with us today, and we look forward to interacting with you further in the BSV Discord and beyond. And have a beautiful day. We'll look forward to meeting with you all again next week on BSV Explain Like I'm Five. Thank you again, Owen.
Thank you.